Hello everybody, I'm the Chronicler and today we're going to talk about one of the most underappreciated military minds and an underrated leader of all times, a Georgian hero, King David IV the Builder, son of George II, a king of Georgia from 1089 to 1125, a great statesman and a powerful military leader who owns a special place in the history of Georgia. But before I tell you more about the King David, we first have to talk about the events that unfolded before he was born to fully understand the state of Georgia and nearby countries during those times. The second half of the 11th century was marked by the disastrous invasions of the Seljuk Turks, who by the end of 1040s succeeded in building a vast nomadic empire, including most of the Central Asia and Iran. In 1071, Seljuk army destroyed the united Byzantine, Armenian and Georgian forces in the Battle of Manzikert, in what the medieval Georgian chronicle refers to the Great Turkish Invasion, and by 1081, all of Armenia, Anatolia, Mesopotamia, Syria, and most of Georgia and other countries of the area were conquered and devastated by the Seljuks. Several provinces of Georgia became depopulated and George II was forced to sue for peace, becoming a tributary of the Sultan Malik Shah I in 1083 when David was just 10 years old. The great noble houses of Georgia, capitalizing on the vacillating character of the king, sought to assert more autonomy for themselves. Tbilisi, the ancient capital of Kartli, remained in the hands of its Muslim rulers, and the local dynasty, for a time suppressed by Georgia's energetic father Bagrat IV, maintained its precarious independence in the eastern region of Kakheti under the Seljuk suzerainty. In Georgia, only mountainous areas of Abkhazia, Swanetia, Raja, and Chevichev-Sureti remained out of Seljuk control and served as a relatively safe haven for numerous refugees. All the rest of the country was dominated by the conquerors that were destroying the cities and the fortresses, looting the villages, wiping out both aristocracy and farming population, and colonizing the country with the nomadic tribes from the Central Asia. In fact, by the end of the 80s of the 11th century, Georgians were at the edge of being irreversibly outnumbered by the newcomers in their own land. David, the only son of George II and Queen Helene, was born in 1073 in the royal city of Kutaisi. He ascended the throne in 1089 at the age of 16 after his father George II was forced to relinquish the throne in favor of his son. David inherited a very heavy legacy. The country was ravaged by enemy invasions, Seljuk Turk nomadic tribes settled in the conquered territories, and the Georgian people were in danger of physical destruction. Soon after coming to power, David rebuilt a regular army and created peasant militia in order to be able to resist Seljuk colonization of the country. Between 1089 and 1100, King David organized small detachments of his loyal troops to restore order and destroy isolated enemy troops. He began the resettlement of devastated regions and helped to revive major cities. The First Crusade in Palestine and Crusaders' offensive against Seljuk Turks in Anatolia and Syria favored David's successful campaigns in Georgia. He slowly pushed the Seljuk Turks out of the country, becoming more and more land from them as they were now forced to focus not only on the Georgians but the newly began crusades in the eastern Mediterranean. By 1099, David IV's power was considerable enough that he was able to refuse paying tribute to the Turks and put most of Georgian lands except Tbilisi and Areti under his effective control. By that time, he also rejected the Byzantine title, thus indicating that Georgia would deal with the Byzantine Empire only on a parity basis. In 1103, he reorganized the Georgian Church and closely linked it with the state by appointing an archbishop, a chief secretary of state of Georgia, corresponding roughly to the post of the prime minister. In 1103-1105, Georgian army took over Areti and made successful raids into still Seljuk-controlled Shirvan. Between 1110 and 1118, David took Lore, Samshvilde, Rustavi and other fortresses of Lower Kartli and Tashiri, thus turning Tbilisi into an isolated Seljuk enclave. In 1118-1119, having considerable amounts of free, unsettled land as a result of the withdrawal of Turkish nomads and desperately needing qualified manpower for the army, King David invited some of 40,000 Kipchak warriors from North Caucasia to settle in Georgia with their families. They were Christianized and quickly assimilated into Georgian society. In 1120, the ruler of Alania recognized himself King David's vassal, and after that, thousands of Alans were allowed to cross the main Caucasus range into Georgia to be settled in Kartli and some other areas. Georgian royal army was also welcoming mercenaries from Germany, Italy, Scandinavia, as well as from Kievan Rus. Muslim powers became increasingly concerned about the rapid rise of Christian state in southern Caucasia. So in 1121, Sultan Mahmud bin Muhammad declared a holy war in Georgia and rallied a large coalition of Muslim states. The size of the Muslim army is still a matter of debate, with numbers ranging from a fantastic 600,000 men to 400,000, and to modern Georgian estimates of 250,000 to 400,000 men. All sources agree that the Muslim powers gathered an army that was much larger than the Georgian force of 56,000 men. However, on 12 August 1121, King David routed the enemy army on the field of Didgori, achieving what is often considered the greatest military success in Georgian history. The victory at Didgori signaled the emergence of Georgia as a great military power and shifted the regional balance in favor of Georgian cultural and political supremacy. Following his success in 1122, David captured Tbilisi, the last Muslim enclave remaining from the Arab occupation, and moved the Georgian capital there. A well-educated man, he preached tolerance and acceptance of other religions, abrogated taxes and services for the Muslims and Jews, and protected the Sufis and Muslim scholars. In 1123, David's army liberated Banisi, the last Seljuk stronghold in southern Georgia. In 1124, David finally conquered Shirvan and took the Armenian city of Ani from the Muslim emirs, thus expanding the borders of his kingdom to the Araxes basin. The Armenians met him as a liberator, providing some auxiliary forces for his army. Humane treatment of the Muslim population, as well as the representatives of other religions and cultures, set a standard for tolerance in his multi-ethnic kingdom. It was a hallmark not only for his enlightened reign, but for all of the Georgian history and culture. After Georgia's decisive victory at the Battle of Didgori, Shirvanshan Manuchir, who was under the influence of his wife, Georgian Princess Tamar, maintained a pro-Georgian orientation and rejected paying tribute to the Seljuks. The price of 40,000 dinars, the Seljuk Sultan Mahmud directed to Shirvan at the beginning of 1123, captured Shamahi and took Shah as a hostage. In response to this, in June 1123, David IV attacked and defeated Sultan again and finally conquered Shirvan by capturing the cities and fortresses of Shamahi, Bukhurt, Kalustan, and Shabran. Beside his political and military skills, King David earned fame as a writer, composing hymns of repentance, a powerful work of emotional three-verse psalms, which reveal the king's humility and the religious zeal. King David the Builder gave close attention to the education of his people. He selected children who were sent to the Byzantine Empire so that they be taught languages and bring home translations made by them there. Many of them later became well-known scholars. At the time of David the Builder, there were quite a few schools and academies in Georgia, among which Kelati occupies a special place. King David's historian calls Kelati Academy a second Jerusalem of all the East for learning all of that is of value, for the teaching of knowledge, a second Athens, far exceeding the first in divine law, a canon for all the ecclesiastical splendors. David the Builder died on 24th of January 1125, leaving Georgia with the status of a strong regional power. And upon his death, as he had specified earlier, was buried under the stone inside the main gatehouse of Kelati Monastery, so that anyone coming to his beloved Kelati Academy stepped on his tomb first. Thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and make sure to subscribe to my channel to not miss any future content.